and progressive activist Michael Moore. Thank you for being back on the show today. Welcome back to Politics Nation. Michael, I've asked you to be on the show for multiple reasons. There's a lot I want to cover with you. Let's start with Israel, the Israel-Hamas war, and how it's hitting home in your home state of Michigan, which has the highest percentage population of Arab Americans in the country. New polling shows support in that community for President Biden has plummeted since the conflict began, falling from 59% in 2020 to just 17% today. What, in your view, is driving this frustration, and what should the White House be doing about it?
Well, thank you, Al, for having me on today. I don't know how it's been for you or the people watching on TV right now, but for me, the last 4 weeks, I don't think there's been a single day that I haven't, at the very least, teared up watching the news, reading the paper, things online, and many days just outright crying. This has been an awful 4 weeks, but of course, I'm just an observer. The people that are suffering, starting with the people in Israel on October 7th, who were slaughtered it's just so mind-boggling. And then all the people who've been held hostage now for these 4 weeks, you know, I just right off the bat, everybody has to get behind the fact that the people of the Jewish faith, of Jewish ancestry, have suffered literally for thousands of years, have suffered this kind of behavior and treatment, and that all of us who are not Jewish need to speak loudly and clearly that we are not only opposed, we will stand in front of and behind and wherever we need to be to protect our Jewish brothers and sisters. This can never happen again, and that never again. We've heard this since World War II, and yet again and again and again. So that has to be said absolutely right off the bat. Hamas has to release every single one of these hostages right now. This is absolutely, I don't know. And then what has exacerbated everything is the fact that you've got a Trumpian figure as the prime minister of Israel, who is, like Trump, currently still under indictment, still awaiting trial for the crimes of fraud, bribery, and numerous other things that he's been indicted on.
You're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, who's under indictment right now.
That is correct. That is correct. And so this person who has lied to his own people, who failed to protect his own people, October 7th, listen, the Israeli press is maybe the best press in the world in terms of they will dig into this. They already are. Great articles already that I've been reading in the Israeli press about the investigations that are going to take place. Right now, they're just living in utter fear and trying to do what they can do, they think, to protect themselves. But of course, the carpet bombing of human beings, civilians, children, simply because they belong to a tribe that is essentially a cousin. When we talk about the Semitic tribes, you're talking about Jews, you're talking about Arabs, you're talking about Muslims. These are essentially, if you've traveled there, they're cousins. I first went to Gaza, and this will make me very different probably from most of the people watching this. I've been to Gaza. I first went there almost 39 years ago, Al. I wanted to see for myself. I went with a group of journalists to just try to figure out, and this is before the first Intifada. And I could not believe what I saw. I couldn't unsee it. And it's the fact that now, what's the latest numbers I read on the AP here this morning? It's close to 10,000 dead Palestinians. And of those, almost 4,000 are children, burned, mangled, blown apart children. And for anybody who's watching this to say, well, they did it too. So you're saying that the way to respond to terror and to horror and to killing people is to do more killing.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
I think a lot of us share that view. I'm outraged by both. I've been to Gaza 21 years ago, met with Arafat, met with Sharon Peres, and at least they could talk. Let me bring you to this topic. On the topic of gun violence, yesterday President Biden visited Lewiston, Maine, to honor the 18 people killed in a mass shooting that shook the state last week. Over 20 years ago, you made Bowling from Columbine, a documentary exploring the roots of gun violence in the wake of the Columbine school shooting. It often seems as if things have gotten worse rather than better since then. Do you agree?
Yeah, I remember the day of the Columbine shooting. We were busy with making our next TV series. And we came in and we turned on the TV and we saw what was going on. By the end of the afternoon, we all decided, my crew and I, that we needed to stop doing what we're doing right now and do this, because this had been the first mass school shooting really in our history. And that if we didn't ourselves do something about this right now, this was going to continue. That was our mindset on that day. And we thought in the sort of optimistic, idealistic way that, geez, if we only made a great film and millions of people saw it, we would put an end to this kind of violence. And of course, as you said, it's only gotten worse. We've already had 570 mass shootings. That's 4 or more people shot this year alone. It's out of control.
Yeah.
There has to be, I mean, I have my own ideas, and we can talk about this on another occasion. But myself and my crew, we've decided that that we are going to actually have to enter this too, and to have this happen at the same time as watching children in Israel and Palestine being slaughtered. And then we have our own slaughter because we won't do the job that needs to be done to prevent this.
Yeah. Not even a background check, Bill.
No,
nothing.
Of course not.
And in Maine, we have had more mass shootings this year than we've had days in this year. But
that is correct.
Let me go back to something else that you were very involved in and I became involved in back in your home state of Michigan. This week, the state attorney general closed this investigation on the Flint water crisis without any criminal charges. Lead-contaminated drinking water in Flint led to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, killed at least 12 people after public officials switched the city's water source in an effort to save money without updating the aging pipe system. Well, what's your reaction to finding out no one would be held criminally accountable nearly a decade after the beginning of the tragedy?
Correct. That it's so disgusting and appalling, and again, sad. It's like I mean, here we are talking really about the same thing: an ethnic cleansing of a majority black city, where the state of Michigan, in order to save some money, took the city off the clean water supply from Lake Huron and made the people of Flint, majority black, drink from the Flint River, a massively polluted river for decades. Yeah. And what it did was it poisoned nearly 10,000 children. Any lead poisoning, if you're under the age of 6 years and younger, you will have permanent brain damage. We still haven't figured out scientifically how to prevent permanent brain damage from a 4 or 5 or 6 year old that has ingested lead, in this case through the water supplied to them by the state of Michigan. And the governor and his people, once they knew that this was going on, they tried to at first cover it up. Oh, it's not that bad. Don't worry. And then they got away with it, Al. They got away with it. And I'm sorry. This is if this was a white town in Michigan, If this was West Bloomfield Hills, Grosse Pointe, Ann Arbor, you never would have seen. This has gone on for 7 years. Nobody convicted, nobody having to be responsible for what they knew what was going on. They knew what was going to happen. And I'm sorry to have to just speak the bitter, honest truth. They also knew that nobody in Flint, Michigan, nobody in this black majority town, and the whites who are there are very poor white people who've had to, after the plant closings, the factory closings, move from the suburbs back to the city because they were broke. Nobody has been charged, I mean, has been convicted. Nobody's gone through a real trial. And it's especially sad when you think the attorney general, who was a good attorney general in Michigan, we got rid of the old one from the water poisoning days, but she's not been able to pull this off.
Yeah.
It's a much, again, you need to devote a whole show on this.
Yeah, because, we will, because it's atrocious, and it is
just
atrocious.
As atrocious
to me
about,
today as it was 10 years ago.
Absolutely. You talk about what happened in Jackson, Mississippi on your show here earlier today.
We'll be talking to the mother and Ben Crump in a minute.
That's another Flint.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another city that has been poisoned, and that little was done about it until people like you said something.
Well, always glad to have you on. You speak truth to power. Thank you, filmmaker.
No, I'm sorry to be so upset, but
I'm with you there. Michael Moore, thank you again for joining with us.